A second-year high school student named Natsusa recklessly drives his motorcycle on the main road, exceeding the speed limit. His carefree behavior offends Truck-kun, so it slams into him and sends him into the hospital. Months into his recovery, Natsusa finally gets the chance to resume his high school life. Upon stepping out of the door, he meets his childhood friend C, ready to welcome him back to his daily life. At that moment, Natsusa takes his hand out of his pocket for a mutual fist bump. Yet, he notices that the numbness from his injury hasn't recovered. Seeing this, Sei forcefully takes his bag from him. As they walk, Sei reminds Natsusa that his mother called his phone 1,000 times, but he never picked up her calls. She then contacted Sei to ensure everything was all right. The first few minutes of their conversation were about her son's accident, while the next hour was mostly about their favorite idol band breaking apart. It doesn't surprise Natsusa that his mother didn't really care about her son's well-being, but Sei proves otherwise, claiming his mother started crying over his injuries. At school, Sei walks Natsusa to the first-year classroom. Unfortunately, due to the accident, the school asked him to repeat his first years, while all of his friends were promoted to seniors. After he leaves, Natsusa begins thinking about his life's future. But suddenly, a fat boy named Fuga comes running to his desk after seeing him for so long. This tells Natsusa that the news of the accident went viral at school, and because of this, everyone will start resting him differently. Even the most useless kid in class believes that Natsusa will need his assistance during their conversation, while another familiar face, Yasunari, quietly sits down in row in front of him. Natsusa sparks a conversation about his performance at the rugby tournament, but for some reason, Yasunari brushes it off. He unexpectedly taunts Natsusa, claiming that he's in no position to give him tips. With that said, Yasunari leaves the classroom, which leaves Natsusa thinking, if he was always like this. In the end, Natsusa decides to ignore Yasunari's behavior and get on with his classes. Once the boring day ends, Sei comes to his class to attend their rugby practice sessions with the new team. Suddenly, Taylor arrives out of nowhere and picks Natsusa like he's a doll made of plastic. All of them are surprised to see that his muscles have shrunk so much. However, Sei claims that this is what happens when a person is forced to lie in bed for 6 months. While some of the guys are happy and welcoming, people like Yasunari and the new first years act nervously around him. As the boys continue to tease Natsusa, the team's captain, Gekuto, arrives on the scene, asking the team to prepare for practice. He takes a few minutes alone with Natsusa to confirm the decision he made about his future. Upon clarifying his motives, Gekuto and Ikuto reveal that they will announce the big things during their next team meeting. Much to everyone's surprise, Ikuto gathers everyone after practice to announce that Natsusa will be their new manager and trainer. He tries to cheer everybody up, but most of them believe that Natsusa isn't fit for the job. To make things worse, Sei abruptly stands up and leaves the room without saying a single word. Turns out Natsusa already had a feeling that Sei won't agree with the path he's chosen. But unlike what other people might think, Sei worries that Natsusa will have to do some heavy lifting in order to fill a manager's shoes. His words remind Natsusa of the doctor informing him that his rugby career is over. He begs Sei to let him be the manager. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a purpose in life. On his first day as manager, Natsusa decides to connect with the new players of the team. He finds Katori and his friend, Yayoi. He remembers the profiles of everyone at the team, only to discover that both of them used to play on a rival team. Yet, something made them change schools and join them instead. That's when Katori speaks his mind, asking Natsusa not to use his name because he dislikes it. Though, as the new manager, Natsusa doesn't flaunt his authority and brushes off the situation. A minute later, he notices Yu, the renowned genius kid who used to study in the top school, eating alone in the corner. Fuga tells him that Yu is a decent person, but he refuses to eat in a group. Soon, the rugby team's practice drills start on the field, and things start getting heated when the former manager of the team starts asking for ice and towels frequently. She even teaches him the methods to wash dirty clothes. But unfortunately, Natsusa messes up more times than he can count. In the middle of their short break, he overhears two guys complaining about the warm water cooler without ice. They don't know how Natsusa will act as their manager when he doesn't even know the right way to ice a water cooler. Besides, they think it's a shame that their super rookie number 24 can't even play on the field. Yet, out of everyone, Yasunari is the one affected most, since he has to fill Natsusa's shoes. Later in the evening, Sei and Natsusa discuss their living arrangements at the dorm. Sei believes that Natsusa should stay with them to keep an eye on the team. However, Natsusa thinks that the team won't welcome his stay. Unbeknownst to them, Ikuto overhears their conversation and decides to discuss things with the coach and captain. As they are about to leave, the girl calls Natsusa, informing him that Yu fainted during his run. He stays by Yu's side for a few hours until he wakes up. Being a shy introvert, Yu flusters while showing his gratitude, and is eager to get back on the field. As they talk, Yu asks how the seniors are so fond of him, to which Natsusa says that he needs to learn how to communicate. Natsusa teaches him 3 different phrases to act excited whenever a senior offers food, advice, or offers to take them somewhere. During this conversation, Natsusa notices Yu struggling to keep his stomach aching. He forcefully takes him to the hospital only to discover that Yu is suffering from gas. The doctors told him to eat right and rest whenever possible. This sudden obstacle pushes Yu to open up about watching Natsusa's match that inspired him to join his school. He wanted him to play on the same team, but in the end, Natsusa's accident changed everything. Little by little, Natsusa feels connected to Yu in more ways than one. He reveals that everyone expects him to give up on rugby. However, he loves it so much that even being on the sidelines is more than enough for him. His unwavering attitude inspires Yu to keep trying hard as well and aim to become a regular on the field. Yu realizes that he loves rugby more than anything else as well. Although his stomach growls says that his mind is only thinking about food at the moment. From that day onward, Natsusa recruits Yu as the team's junior manager, though this doesn't set well with Ikuto because he would need to find more players interested in the club. Taylor and the others also raise the same questions. However, Natsusa assures them that Yu is the best candidate. He can keep their times, manage their budget, and update the website when necessary. Natsusa uses the same attractiveness he taught Yu to ensure everyone is on their side. Suddenly, someone asks him to go inside the storage and look for the Vaseline. During this time, he finds a uniform belonging to the great Ibuki. Meanwhile, somewhere near the university, Ibuki's cat bites his foot to wake him up early for breakfast. Amidst all the chaos in his room, he finds a bunch of memories from his days at the rugby club. A few days later, Yu comes to Natsusa with an application that can track every team in their league. It holds data of their wins and losses throughout their 4 years in college. Not only that, the app can also be used to hunt for profiles on famous players to create a counterplan against them. Still for now, Natsusa doesn't think the team needs to worry about their match tomorrow with Hinkoi. He played them before his injury, and they practically killed them on the field. However, their main concerns are the 2 brothers Kazutaka and Madoka. These 2 are known as the god of back and front, and they are the only reason their university hasn't secured first place in their league. In fact, Yu reveals that Natsusa used to play with the brothers back in his high school days, yet to this day, they don't have a solid strategy to use against the brothers. Eventually, Natsusa advises the guys to focus on the opponents next to them, while he will come up with the perfect plan against the 2 brothers. He then apologizes to the team for not being able to come to their match, as he needs to be somewhere important. While Natsusa is alone with C, he reminds him that they also have a god of their own in their team. He just needs to convince Ibuki to return. As the day turns into night, Ibuki decides it is high time to enjoy his youthfulness while it lasts. He goes to a random club and attracts a group of girls who die to touch his muscles. They are eager to know if he played any sports before. However, before he can answer, Natsusa quietly shows up in his face to remind him that he's still alive. He willingly ignores the fact that Ibuki didn't come to see him for 6 months, just to ask him to return to the team. Unfortunately, Ibuki refuses to join, claiming he has put that life behind him. During their conversation, some of the girls are attracted by Natsusa's innocent charm. Unexpectedly, the excessive fatigue from being a manager triggers his hernia, making him fall unconscious. Eventually, Ibuki takes him out of the club and tries to call Sei, though Natsusa tells him that he won't pick up due to their match tomorrow. He then stands and makes his way to the nearby station. But before going, he tells Ibuki that he doesn't plan on giving up anytime soon. Natsusa's last words keep Ibuki awake till late. He keeps getting a flashback of the day they were in the accident. In reality, Natsusa begged Ibuki to drive back to the field to pick up his mouthguard. Although Natsusa didn't like the bike Ibuki's his elder brother gave him, he didn't have a choice but to ask for his help. Before the leave, Sei advises Ibuki to drive slowly. Unfortunately, he loses control over his bike due to a technical malfunction and hits a car on the highway. The following morning, Natsusa barges on Ibuki's doorstep and constantly rings his bell like a 3-year-old kid. He even screams in the hallway, claiming Ibuki slept with his sister, which forces him to rush outside. Ultimately, Ibuki warns him not to push his luck, otherwise he might beat him to death. Little did he know that Natsusa expected his violent behavior and prepared brass knuckles for such an occasion. Once Ibuki goes down on his knees, Natsusa goes down and gives him a club application form. He also grabbed his electrical bills from the locker before the utility center decided to cut his power. After leaving, Ibuki reflects on joining the club once again. However, he remembers the night he talked to Natsusa about his future. As the news of his injury reached, Ibuki called Natsusa to reveal that he's going to quit playing rugby. He expresses his guilt for using the bike and apologizes for destroying his life. The very next morning, Ibuki wakes up to his cats throwing a tantrum, only to realize that they are out of food. He tries to visit the grocery store, but every corner holds a letter from Natsusa reminding him to join the team again. He doesn't get a break from the prank even at his nearest grocery store. This constant reminder puts his mind back into returning to the team. But then, Ibuki remembers the time he went to see Natsusa at the hospital. He was about to open the door until Natsusa told Sei that he didn't want to eat anymore. He didn't care about losing muscle mass because his rugby career was over. All in all, Natsusa wanted to go out in a tackle instead of a bike. He claimed that none of them, including Sei, can understand his frustration since they can still play. His words were enough to make Ibuki think that Natsusa hates him. Yet, unbeknownst to him, Natsusa is eager to have him back on the team. At that moment, Ikuto realizes that their manager is a part-time social harasser. He even punched Ibuki with the brass knuckle and expected him to show up at the club after that. Everything aside, Ikuto claims that they won 2 games in their league without Ibuki. They don't understand why he is such an important asset to the team. Hearing this from Ikuto is something Natsusa didn't expect in a lifetime. Still, he doesn't hold it against him, and reveals that they can't win without Ibuki holding down the number 10th position. Without him, they will only remain second in the entire prefecture as always. Plus, he thinks it won't be long until Ibuki will get tired of his games and join the club. Unexpectedly, Natsusa finds Ibuki pity partying in the university church. As they converse, the new manager acts calm and collected, reminding Ibuki that he tends to act recklessly when off the field for too long. However, Ibuki can't find it in himself to ask for forgiveness. This finally helps Natsusa understand that Ibuki has been blaming himself for the accident ever since. But instead of pitying him, he claims that the only way he can earn forgiveness is by playing on the field. Still, Ibuki can't find the heart to play while Natsusa stands on the sidelines alone. At that moment, the injured lion loses himself in anger, only to be reminded that it is his choice to act as their manager. Not only that, ever since childhood, Natsusa and Ibuki have looked to him in many ways. He was the reason the two of them got hooked on rugby in the first place. And now, he can't sit idly by while Ibuki throws his entire career away for nothing. After hearing all of that, Ibuki finally accepts Natsusa's piece. He also says something in his ear that leaves him shocked. Unbeknownst to them, both Sei and Yasunari visit the church one by one. Later in the evening, Natsusa tells Ibuki that they will announce his return during their next team meeting. He will also tell the coach and captain about the news. Although the announcement during their next team meeting doesn't go as planned because of Ibuki's sudden disappearance last year. The players argue that letting the blonde play again would send a bad message to the rest of the team. They might think that quitting and rejoining the team is as easy as buying an OnlyFans subscription. Aside from that, they worry that Ibuki's skill must have diminished after a year of sitting in the bar with random chicks. At that moment, Ibuki speaks up in his defense, claiming the team's performance in their previous matches was shit. He thinks that they can't win the upcoming matches without him playing as their number 10. This statement ignites a fire that leads everyone into a fight. Once that happens, Natsusa intervenes and throws out a suggestion. He proposes that they should let Ibuki play in the B team, which is scheduled for a practice match after 2 days. He can prove his skill in that match and get promoted to their main team. If he is not able to play well, then Ibuki will become their errand boy until he graduates. Not only that, he will have to sit in everyone's classes and gather notes for their exams. Naturally, Ibuki doesn't agree to this, knowing that he might not be at the top of his game. Still, Natsusa continues to rile up the other players, asking if they are scared to play against a former player. Amongst all of them, only Yu understands what Natsusa is doing to everyone. But in the end, his methods work like magic because everyone agrees to let Ibuki play in the B team. Afterwards, Natsusa, Sei, and Ibuki go out for lunch. Not only did the poor person get a possible death sentence in the club room, he also had to pay for lunch. That's when Ibuki lashes out at Natsusa for trapping him in his sweet talk. He asks Sei to take his side, but he ignores him with absolute silence. Ibuki tries to understand if he doesn't want to talk while eating or if something else is wrong. At that moment, Natsusa reveals that he is pissed off with him for leaving the team without notice. On the day of the match, Ibuki confidently stretches on the field, showing everyone that he isn't nervous. Suddenly, Yayoi approaches and reminds Ibuki that they met at summer camp while they were in middle school. The two of them then start talking about how small Yayoi was compared to the others. Just then, Kotori catches his eye, who was also at the same camp with them. At first, he yells at Ibuki for using his name, but after realizing his mistakes, Kotori softly greets him to the team. Seeing all of this makes you wonder if Ibuki is really a star player. However, Natsusa knows that being approachable is one of Ibuki's qualities. Despite being the best on the field, he doesn't flaunt his skill in front of his juniors. The ones studying in the same class, however, are a different story. Natsusa claims they were pissed off that Ibuki walked out on them without discussing his trauma, which also explains the silence in the club room meeting earlier. Upon hearing his thoughts, Yu believes that Ibuki will definitely prove his strength in front of the B and A team. Yet, for some reason, he doesn't find the same expression on Natsusa's face. Their manager knows that a 7-month break is detrimental for a close contact sport like rugby. He believes that chances of Ibuki succeeding are 50-50. As the match begins, the B team passes the ball to Ibuki for his debut. Unexpectedly, the creep starts treating the ball like it's an AI girlfriend. He takes his time to remember the feel of holding it, while everyone stands in disbelief. As the non-professional behavior continues, Taisei reminds their current number 10 that he is the standoff. They can't let a traitor come back after 7 months and steal his positions. Once the first half ends, Natsusa notices that Ibuki is holding himself well for someone on a hiatus. Ibuki also sees his reaction and reveals that he's been hitting the gym frequently. That's when Natsusa looks between the finer details, only to discover that his muscles have grown since he left the team. Still, according to him, Ibuki's performance was only decent. Natsusa claims he doesn't want this pitiful version. He asked him to come back to show everyone the real god of back. Right before the second half begins, Tori warns Ibuki that they are going to lose if he plays like shit. Yet, Ibuki isn't worried at all because he has gotten the feel for the ball. The match resumes with a scrum, and Taisei is the one who manages to get the ball. Without anyone noticing, Ibuki takes the exact position where Taisei decides to escape from the scrum. This allows him the opportunity to land the perfect tackle without putting much effort. Not only that, Ibuki gets in the groove of the attack as well. He takes the ball from his team, kicks it towards Yayoi to make the perfect goal. These back-to-back extraordinary plays remind Makoto of the time that he once played against Ibuki on the opposing team. He wasn't able to touch him for once, but this time around, Makoto vows to win against him. Eventually, when the match begins, Makoto realizes that Tori and the others will look for a pass to Ibuki. As expected, this is their team's first play, but unbeknownst to them, Makoto stands in position for the tackle. Yet, despite succeeding in the tackle, Ibuki manages to pass the ball towards Tori to score an easy point. Meanwhile, watching all of these genius plays unfold makes Natsusa feel like he is a bird peering down from the sky onto their game. He claims that Ibuki isn't the tallest of the strongest amongst rugby players. However, he has the foresight to predict the future of the field. To him, the ground is nothing but a chessboard. This is why he can stand amongst the geniuses of the world. Still, Natsusa feels that not punishing him for his hiatus would send a wrong message to the entire team. Ultimately, Gakuto enters the match, deciding he will teach Ibuki a lesson that he'll never forget. Once the match begins, Ibuki lands the first tackle on Gakuto. Yet his heavy physique makes it impossible to steal the ball. The rest of the team also falls short to stop Ikuto and the others, which leads to their utter defeat. Afterwards, Natsusa sarcastically comes clapping for Ibuki and their team. He thinks that they were beyond losers in this match. However, the boys can't help but be impressed by Ibuki's genius plays. Yayoi also feels that Ibuki is enough to come back and dominate. At that moment, the fourth year arrives on the scene and approves his return. They claim that even the coach has given Ibuki the green signal. Now, all that is left is for the Ibuki to seek approval from the third years in the team. Upon hearing this, Natsusa, Sei, and Ibuki rush to the third year. But the smooth blonde who always has something to say can't seem to find a word. Eventually, Natsusa begs the team as their new manager to let Ibuki play. He reveals that Ibuki blamed and punished himself for his injuries, which is why he quit playing. Suddenly, much to everyone's surprise, even Ibuki bows down to ask for forgiveness. After seeing all of that, Sei believes that it is now his turn to the same. That's when everyone in the third year finally agrees to let him return to the team. Unfortunately, Taisei doesn't let go of his grudge from a year back and leaves the pitch. Once everything is settled, Sei reminds Natsusa to visit his new room after cleaning up. They have already moved all of his belongings beforehand. Upon making his way back to his dorm room, Natsusa discovers that he has been assigned a room with his Yasunari, who is someone that is meant to take his place as the star rookie in their current team. Due to his overshadowing, his relationship with Natsusa rots to the core. He doesn't even reply to Natsusa's greetings or tries to welcome him into the room. Eventually, Natsusa says that their age gap is relevant, permitting him to act casually, but naturally, Yasunari doesn't want to deal with his crap. He keeps saying that I don't acknowledge your existence and leaves the dorm. Later that day, Natsusa complains about Yasunari's behavior with him. He's especially pissed that Yasunari ignored his advice to drink protein powder to improve his muscle definition. Not only that, the tough boy's act with the straw man's fallacy creates a standoff that never ends. While talking about this, Natsusa wonders if Yasunari Yae was always this cold towards him since high school. He finds it hard that a person can change that much in 6 months. However, putting that aside, Natsusa thinks that it is prime time that Ibuki stops slacking off and plays in the main team. Suddenly, Sei removes himself from the spotting position and starts arguing with Natsusa while Ibuki struggles with the weight. He claims that their team has been winning all of their matches without Ibuki's help. On the day of their match, Ibuki excitedly shows Natsusa his number 20 t-shirt. However, he reminds him that his job is to play as number 10. His words make Makoto wonder if he's really worthy to be their standoff player. Afterwards, all the boys take a local train to the stadium. During this time, Taylor and the others make fun of their opposing teams, calling them a bunch of nerds. Yet, instead of telling them to play with caution, Natsusa focuses on the fact that everyone is taking extra space in the train. He continues to count all of the mistakes they have made in their lives until they break and apologies. Still, Yu finds it strange that the kind, gentle, and fun-loving Natsusa can be this hard on others. Fuga insists that he's only this tough with the seniors of their team. As for the younger classmen, Natsusa has been a coach. He walks over to Yasunari to bring him into the conversation, but he's lost in his mobile. Fuga shakes him awake, which causes the phone to fall down, revealing he was watching Natsusa's old matches. Naturally, he gets ashamed and tries to lash out at Fuga. However, Katori reminds him that he can't act cocky with his teammates. Eventually, Taisei is forced to intervene in the situation before a fight escalates on the train. Once they reach their destination, a player named Ryusei runs over to Natsusa for his once-in-a-lifetime fan moment. He awkwardly shakes his hand while speaking of all the things Natsusa did during his childhood. Eventually, the conversation became so awkward that even others on the field started noticing. This is when one of his teammates comes to drag him away for the match. As the match is about to start, Gakudo gathers everyone in the dressing room, claiming the other team isn't what they were during last year's match. The team takes his advice to heart and doesn't let them have the ball. Natsusa notices that the team is holding up on their own, which means that Ibuki won't get a chance to play in this match as well. Suddenly, a strange thing happens on the field as Ryusei runs upfield without any cover. He manages to change his center of gravity to avoid all tackles. He even passes Yasunari without any issues, leaving him stunned. Still, one of the players manages to stop him before Ryusei gets to the goal. With that, everyone gets into position, and Sei manages to score a direct kick without an effort. His calm and collected playstyle encourages Yu to ask about his past with Natsusa and Ibuki. They reveal that Sei has always been a chill dude even while playing in the most pressured situation. He practiced diligently and mastered the art of scoring points till his second year of high school. Ever since then, he has been proficient in stealing points. And aside from that, he is one hell of a best friend. Yet, the person they are worried about is Yasunari's playstyle on the field. He fails to stop Ryusei because his footwork reminds him of Natsusa running on the field. Ultimately, Sei comes to his side and reminds him that Ryusei is not Natsusa. From that point onward, Yasunari tries every trick in the book, but he can't find a way to stop Ryusei from scoring the goal. As the first half ends, Ibuki realizes that Ryusei isn't just a random fanboy. He mastered every one of Natsusa's moves and executed them perfectly. However, instead of going to Yasunari to talk, Ibuki tells him to stay put and let Yu do the icing. He fears that seeing Natsusa in front of him might rile up more emotions that will be bad for the team's morale. The second half begins, yet the team doesn't find any luck with their existing players. That's when Natsusa goes down on his knees to tape Ibuki. Unexpectedly, Natsusa reveals that he has been taping Sei and Ibuki ever since their high school days together. They also have a very special method for applying their tapes, which is why Ibuki and Sei are forced to put up with everything Natsusa says. Not only that, the three of them have a long-lasting tradition of shaping the final stand of tape into a triangle. There was once a match where Ibuki got a high tackle, but came out of it without an injury. He believes that it was that triangle-shaped tape that gave him good luck and protection from the gods of rugby. Taisei and the others are skeptical of him playing on the field. However, Taylor is thrilled to have his old partner back in the game. In fact, back in high school, his speed surpassed others on his team. This meant that none of them could keep up with him. Then, one day, Ibuki joined the club for a practice match. He spent the first half assessing Taylor's skill level and speed. These two aspects allow Ibuki to collaborate with Taylor on a level that no one expected. Back in the present, the opposing team assumes that Ibuki's substitution is a desperate play from Natsusa's side. Yet, with his perfect combination play with Taylor, the tables turned in their favor. He predicts where Sei and Taylor will be to create the perfect opportunity to attack. Unfortunately, the opposing team gains momentum when Ibuki is forced to play on the back foot. This allows them to win the match and create a history for their school. Their fresh wounds of losing haven't even dried, but their greatest rivals Madoka and Kazutaka arrive to pour salt on them. the so-called god of forward picks a fight with Ibuki for leaving the game without his consent. He claims that none of the other players could match their level of play, making the game boring. Madoka, on the other hand, reminds Natsusa that they will have to win the next game at any cost to play with their school nails. Still, he thinks that becoming champions in their league is unrealistic, especially with players like Yasunari on their side, though Natsusa quickly turns the tables on them and says that they will definitely reach the nationals. In the meantime, Gakuto walks over to Yasunari to inform him about the team's anonymous decision to remove him from the starting lineup. However, they will give him a chance to prove his skills in the next warm-up match. Yasunari I carries his words around the hallway until he overhears the juniors bad-mouthing him. They claim that despite Fuga intercepting various attacks, Yasunari couldn't find his rhythm in the game. Plus, Ryusei's shadow cloning of Natsusa doubled the amount of pressure on everyone. Even so, some of the juniors understand that filling Natsusa's shoes isn't an easy task. That's when Yasunari, ragingly, enters the dressing room to pick a fight with everyone. Luckily, Fuga stops him from hitting Kotori. Yet, the commotion caused inside the room catches the attention of Natsusa and Yu, who were casually chatting about their team's future. Upon seeing the fight, Natsusa immediately jumps in, but Yasunari claims that it is none of his business. Eventually, Natsusa tells him to shut up and moves towards Kotori for answers. At that second, Yasunari breaks free from Fuga hold to push Natsusa onto the lockers, causing his hernia to act up. Luckily, Natsusa manages to call Ikuto inside the room before things escalate further. A few hours later, Natsusa decides that it is prime time, and he and Yasunari have a conversation. Just then, Yasunari pushes Natsusa to the wall, claiming that everyone thinks he only got this position because of the super rookie's injuries. Unexpectedly, instead of denying it right to his face, Natsusa says that it is a fact. At that moment, Natsusa suddenly pats his head to appreciate everything he has done for the team, because to him, Yasunari's past or how he got the position doesn't matter. All that is important is that he plays well for the team. Otherwise, in his experience, Gakuto will kick him out of the team. Judging by Yasunari's reaction, Natsusa guesses that the captain has already given him the warning, but he claims that all is not lost yet. He proclaims that Yasunari Wai will be a new player if he just follows every instruction Natsusa gives him for the next 2 weeks. From that point onward, the revenue manager puts every bit of effort into making Yasunari regret messing with him in the first place. He makes the junior carry him to school and drinks his warm, sloppy protein mixes. This is all the revenge for neglecting Natsusa's weightlifting advice the other day. At this point, even the other guys start to feel bad for Yasunari, claiming that Natsusa is too hard on the poor guy. On the day of their first training before the warm-up match, the boys notice that both Natsusa and Yasunari are missing from the ground. They ask around only to discover that the two of them sought permission from Gakuto to train one-on-one. For some reason, even the supervisor approved of this, which means Gakuto didn't have any say in it. Unbeknownst to everyone, Natsusa takes Yasunari into the jungles for his special training exercise. He draws a big rectangle around them and instructs Yasunari to avoid being caught by him. The catch is that he can only run in the closed space because smaller players like them have to rely on speed and agility rather than pure brutal strength. At first, Yasunari is worried that he might injure Natsusa since he can run as fast as before. However, somehow Natsusa is confident that Yasunari won't be able to touch him, and that's exactly what happens after a few rounds of play. In the end, Yasunari runs out of breath and decides to take a break. Naturally, being the cockiest player in the world, Natsusa insults Yasunari's playing style, claiming he shouldn't be on the starting lineup with his skills. This motivates him to try again, but this time, Yasunari manages to tackle him to the ground. Still before the collision, he warps his hands behind Natsusa's back and neck to ensure his safety. After a long day of practice, Natsusa concludes that Yasunari, it has officially sucked compared to the rest of the team. Still, he can't understand how a player who could keep up with him during his high school days can lose his mojo. Upon hearing Natsusa mock his skills over and over again, strikes a nerve in Yasunari, leading him to reveal that he's been working harder than he used to. He has downloaded all of Natsusa's previous plays and tries to copy them to perfection. With that confession out in the open, Natsusa tells him that he shouldn't change his play style. He can never be a good player if he doesn't create his own. For now, he believes that Yasunari is good enough to stay in the starting lineup. Yet, he can't help him find his self-confidence again. As they are about to leave, Natsusa grabs Yasunari's phone and deletes all of his old videos from it. He then takes him to Yu's house to dig up Yasunari's previous performances during his prime years. Natsusa explains that the player in the video used to make subtle moves to tackle his foes, and his changeover was something to die for. Hence, he leaves Yu with Yasunari, telling him to remind him of his former self. On the day of the practice match, Yasunari realizes that he needs to perform, otherwise Gakuto will kick him off the team. The immense pressure throws him off before the game even begins. However, Natsusa riles him with reverse psychology, claiming the team doesn't expect much from his second-choice replacement. This lights a fire inside him, which allows Yasunari to conquer his fears and play his real game. The intense footwork and change-overs trick his opponent into going in the opposite direction to create easy opportunities for goals. Yet, after the match ends, Natsusa hits Ibuki in the guts, as he noticed that Ibuki was going easy on Yasunari. The blondie claims that being on the receiving end of his punishment can take a lot out of a person, so he decided that the victims should stick together. Later that night, Natsusa suddenly calls on Yasunari while he is dead asleep. He tells him to call Sei because his body can't move. Yasunari tries calling Sei, but in the end, he has to stay by Natsusa's side until the morning. That's when Sei shows up with the meds that relieve severe hernia pain. Yet, deep down, he knows that it will take an entire day for him to move again. With that in mind, Sei and Natsusa tell Yasunari to get ready for class. They can't have him lose an important year because of a small mishap. Other than that, Natsusa wants him to take notes on the lecture for future reference once Sei steps outside to get more meds from his dorm. Yasunari claims that Natsusa's condition has worsened because of him. He pushed him to train multiple times alongside various tackles. Yet, Sei diverts the blame from him, since Natsusa was the one who asked him to train in the first place. He also reveals that their manager would return to the field in a heartbeat, which is why he wanted to practice with Yasunari. Sei assures him that everything happening with Natsusa is his own fault. A few hours later, Ibuki shows up at Natsusa's dorm room with a bowl of rice porridge. He doesn't say anything, but Natsusa realizes he's feeling guilty for the accident all over again. While eating, Ibuki intends to mention something. However, Natsusa shuts him down, claiming he doesn't want to hear his sentimental bullshit. At the same time, the guys in the cafeteria worry about their manager's health in the long run. This also becomes a major reason for Sei losing control over his kicks. He tells his fellow second years that he's been getting worse at kicking the ball by the minute, although the third years on the other table think they are talking creepily about the girls in their class. Yet, instead of pulling their leg, they focus on planning their own dates with Ibuki as their new wingman. Later at their first practice, without Natsusa by their side, the team relies on Yu to handle everyone's ties and warm-up routine. Unfortunately, being the only person on the field overwhelms Yu. Eventually, Ikuto notices his expression and walks over to offer his help. At the same time, Yuki approaches to ask Yu if he's seen his water bottle with anime figurines attached to it. He believes that his water bottle brings him luck while playing the game. Yu, obviously unaware of all of these things, is forced to search the cooler relentlessly to find his bottle. Still, things don't stop there, as the boys soon come to him after their warm-up stretches for their custom protein shakes. These requests overwhelm him so much that Ikuto is forced to intervene and asks the boys to take it easy on Yu. Suddenly, Ibuki walks onto the pitch, informing everyone that Natsusa isn't doing any better than before. After their training sessions, Natsusa keeps a close eye on his phone to see the starting lineup for their first match. He is thrilled to see that both Yasunari Y and Ibuki made the cut. However, some of his teammates, especially Taisei, don't have mutual feelings regarding this matter. He says that Ibuki is a traitor who abandoned his team without thought. He can't stand the fact that Gakuto and the coach picked him for the starting lineup. Takumi tries to intervene in the situation, but Taisei leaves without saying a word. The boys eventually look past this incident to visit Natsusa together. They do various stupid things inside his room to make him feel better. They hang a model's picture above his bed, message his feet with both Chinese and Thai methods. Aside from that, they write a get well message on his forehead. Yet, all of this only continues to annoy to an extent where he wants to commit suicide. Still, this can't compare to the stew he is forced to eat made by Yu, which is worse than Shion's cooking. The after effects of that stew leaves a bad taste and numbs Natsusa's tongue, forcing Yasunari to do overtime care for him. He then goes outside only to find Yu packing his stew for tomorrow's rice porridge. Yasunari blankly says, okay, and tries to leave. However, Yu confides that he's been overwhelmed by the amount of chores. At first, he only appreciated Natsusa for his in-game knowledge. Yet, after taking his place for a day, he realized that their manager is one-man army. He knows about everyone's preferences and drinks without even asking. This is something Yu believes he'll never manage to accomplish. Yasunari takes this moment to remind Yu that there is something only a certain person can do. For example, Natsusa can't create a budget, maintain inventory, and update their website with new content. Aside from that, Yu also made an app that tracks all the major players in the local and national league, making him an asset to the team. These kinds of words make Yu tear up out of habit. Yet, he's not the only one, as Ikuto, who had been listening to their conversation, also cries like a baby after seeing Yu and Yasunari grow. In the meantime, Ibuki visits Natsusa to ask if Taisei visited him throughout the day, although he's distracted by the voiceover painting hung on the ceiling. After enjoying it for a little while, Natsusa realizes that even Sei didn't come to see him. That's when Ibuki reveals that he hasn't seen him since practice. Unbeknownst to them, Sei spends his free time on the field trying to get his kicking mojo back. On the day of the big match, Natsusa manages to get out of bed. Still, Yu insists on doing all of the heavy lifting for him. At the same time, the third years warn their juniors not to pick a fight with the other team. Natsusa and the rest of the first years got riled up last year, which led to a very brutal brawl. The match was about to be cancelled, but Ikuto and Gakuto intervened to save the day. Just as the seniors finish their warning, the other team shows up at their doorstep to mock them for losing their previous match. Almost immediately, the team forgets about the warning a few minutes before and starts talking trash to each other. Ibuki and the others claim that they have never lost to their school, which isn't going to change. Yet, the opposing team claims that their lineup is the worst ever. Not only that, one of the players also comments on the crash with Natsusa. This is enough to rile both Fuga and Natsusa, but Ibuki stops them from throwing a punch. Eventually, Ikuto shouts at the top of his lungs, telling everyone to shut up. Once the opposing team leaves, Natsusa tries to pick a fight with Ibuki to stop his punch. At the same time, the other third and second years also want Ibuki's head served to them in a bowl. They are tired of girls approaching him left and right. They want him to share the spotlight and hook them up with a hottie. That aside, Ikuto forces Fuga to apologize, but Natsusa challenges him to a fight. Seeing this, Yasunari comments that Natsusa loves picking a fight. However, Ibuki reveals that he's always been protecting him like a little soldier, ensuring he doesn't lose his head. Still, he somehow managed to get into trouble each time. On the other hand, Yu hurriedly completes his chores and runs back to the dressing room, but he accidentally bumps into the other team, creating more tension on the field. One of the guys recognizes Yu from his previous school. He can't comprehend why a player would drop his jersey and be a manager instead. Coincidentally, the one on the right picks up a Yu tablet from the ground only to discover in-game data of their entire team. He claims that this is illegally stalking them. However, Yu reveals that all of his data was taken from public sites, while the rest of it is except analysis of their playstyles. With that clarification, Yu demands them to return his tablet. Yet, the boys intentionally drop and stomp it on the ground, leaving him with no data for the coming match. Soon, Yasunari arrives on the field to check up on him, but Yu hides the tablet from him to avoid any confrontation. That's when Yasunari gets suspicious that something is wrong. He forces him to reveal what's behind him, only to discover the incident with the opposing team. He immediately loses his cool and decides to confront them. However, Yu grabs him by the hand, begging him to stop. He reminds him that the fourth years need to reach the nationals, otherwise they won't get another chance. Besides, his confrontation will cause a fight which will force the administration to cancel the match. The other team will get another chance to bounce back, but they won't. In the end, Yasunari understands Yu's point of view and decides that he will beat them on the field. Minutes before the match, Makoto helps spot Taisei during his stretching routines. At that moment, he tells Makoto that he deserves an opening position instead of Ibuki. However, Makoto doesn't want Taisei to waste his energy on pointless matters. He reveals that Gakuto personally asked the coach and supervisor to swap him with Ibuki, and accepting that decision will be the best for everyone. At the same time, the second years sit together to clear their thoughts before the match. Sei reveals that he hasn't conquered his weak kicking, which leads the three of them to meditate. Yet, even after years together, Natsusa can't grasp Sei and the others' pre-match rituals. Yet after taping his friends for years, Natsusa tells Yu that he's grown accustomed to superstars and their weird rituals. He asks Yu to record the process for future notes, though he lies to Natsusa about dropping his table by accident. Still, he assures him that there's an entire backup setup in his computer. With no recording tools, Natsusa asks Yu to help with the process instead. He noticed that Sei's balance had been off for a few games. Thus, he tapes his back while explaining the muscles and autonomy of the human body. Hearing all of that leaves Yu impressed and worried that he won't be able to master the techniques. However, Natsusa reveals that he only learned about the technical details after becoming a manager. As the game begins, the opposing team does its best to rile Yasunari into a fist fight. Although he fears Natsusa's gaze, the referee still gives him a yellow card for the unnecessary tackle. With that, the referee calls the first scrum of the game, but the opposing team gives them a penalty kick. As always, the team is confident that Sei won't miss the kick. Natsusa even goes to fill the cooler without a worry. However, much to everyone's surprise, Sei misses the kick by a mile. The team doesn't think much of it until Sei goes and misses the kick second time in a row. The team desperately tries to bounce back from that setback. Yet, Taisei hesitates to pass the ball to Ibuki at the critical moment, allowing the opposing team to steep possession and score. Losing that point right before the second half crushes the morale of the team. In a desperate attachment, Natsusa tries to talk with Sei, asking if he needs to change the taps. However, Sei politely asks him to leave him alone for a little while. At the same time, Makoto dashes towards Taisei and asks to speak with him privately. As soon as they get to a secluded place, Makoto pushes him into the wall, claiming he's sabotaging the team for a childish reason. At first, Taisei attempts to cover up his actions as a mistake. Yet, Makoto believes that he hesitated to pass the ball to Ibuki because he took over the standoff position. With nothing left to hide, Taisei comes clean about his feelings towards Ibuki. He says that Ibuki came back to the team and took over the standoff position without giving it a second thought. He also wonders why Makoto isn't fazed by this at all. Unexpectedly, their former number 10 reveals that he hates being replaced, but more so, he is pissed about Taisei showing him pity on the field. As their conversation draws to its conclusion, Makoto bows down, begging Taisei to collaborate with Ibuki to win the match. After everyone gathers in the dressing room, Gakuto tells the first and second years that the opposing team is trying to rattle them because they are the better team. The minute he ends his pep talk, Sei approaches the bench to withdraw from the match. He thinks that his performance will be the same in the second half. Yet, Gakuto refuses, reminding him that his skills are necessary for them to reach the finals. Ultimately, Sei's request gets denied, leaving him no choice but to play. At the start of the second half, Yasunari follows Natsusa's advice to keep a close eye on number 15. He uses his hyper-focus eyes against him to steal the ball and score. Even Sei overcomes his weakness and manages to score a point. It seems to Gakuto that they can win the match with each. However, during the next scrum, one of the opposing players tackles Takumi, tearing his leg muscles. The team eventually loses the match and rushes over to the hospital, only to discover that Takumi will be out for the whole season. He believes that this team might be cursed because he and Takumi got injured. However, instead of talking back to him, the team focuses on emotionally helping Takumi. After some time, Ibuki tells the boys that they can visit the hospital another time. At that moment, Sei drops a bombshell, asking that Natsusa's presence on the field makes him miss his kicks. It is also the reason that the team is losing their matches. Hence, he thinks that Natsusa shouldn't be at their matches. Sei calmly explains that he couldn't score a point in the first half, but while playing the second half, his kicks were perfect. This was because Natsusa was not present on the field. All this time, Natsusa hears him speak without lashing out, since he believes that the team member needs him to tape them. However, Sei provides a workaround to this, claiming he should leave for home after taping him and Ibuki. Seeing his selfish attitude with a calm voice cracks a deep nerve inside Natsusa. He walks up to Sei's face and tells him that he needs more practice. With that, a never-ending argument takes place in the hospital. Both Yu and Yasunari can't put their hand on whether they should intervene or not. However, Ibuki has seen these squabbles happen 1,000 times before. He knows that Sei remains calm and collected in an argument, which makes Natsusa even angrier. Natsusa continues to defend himself, claiming he's not the reason behind Sei's mistakes. Yet, even Sei himself doesn't know what happens to him. He just realized that every time Natsusa watches him play, his body freezes and hearts start to beat faster. This helps the others to understand that Sei gets nervous around Natsusa. Ibuki reassures him that this happens to everyone. However, Sei can't understand this feeling because it never happened to him before. To help him understand, Yu and Yasunari jump into the conversation, affirming what Ibuki said is true. Still, Sei continues to insist that Natsusa shouldn't be at his match. This resumes until Natsusa tells him that their conversation is over. Just like a normal man, he follows the instructions, but Natsusa pouts his face for no reason. He reminds him that every time he ends a conversation, Sei must keep asking if he's alright. After hours of drama, Ibuki decides to break things apart with his suggestion. He thinks that everyone should visit the hot springs to heal previous wounds. He signals Yu to convince Natsusa to come with them as well. This way, everyone present has no choice left but to listen to their seniors. On the train to their hometown, Sei randomly takes out a spiritual website and asks Yasunari what he thinks. He takes a moment to solve a problem that reveals Yasunari has a fixation problem. Between their conversation, Ibuki realizes that Yasunari isn't enjoying his creepy conversations with Sei. Thus, he interferes, asking Yu if he packed lunch for anyone. The vice manager reveals that Natsusa prepared home-cooked meals to celebrate their victory, yet everything went down the drain with their loss. Still, he offers everyone to eat the food until Natsusa steals it, claiming none of them deserve his cooking after their shitty performance. Once the boys arrive at their destination, Ibuki uses his charm to book everyone's rooms at a cheaper price. He notices that Yasunari has been pretty shaken up since everyone got off the train. He takes him to the side only to discover that Sei used his spiritual mambo jumbo on him. Despite feelings for the guy, Ibuki explains that they are going to help Natsusa and Sei to resolve their issues during the trip. He claims to have everything covered with Sei. However, Yasunari and Yu will have to take over Natsusa's side. As the boys go into their rooms, Yu and Yasunari try to remind Natsusa that Sei is his friend, yet their attempt to patch things up backfires, as Natsusa brings up the fact that Yasunari hated him the most. That's when Yu comes in with an accurate description of Yasunari's heart, explaining that he was worried to fill in Natsusa's shoes. In reality, he thinks that Yasunari really likes him, but Natsusa unexpectedly starts crying because Yasunari doesn't like him. The poor first year tries his best to convince him that the opposite is true, yet Natsusa continues his torture without mercy. On the other hand, Ibuki works to motivate Sei to play with all his heart and soul. He asks him for the reason behind playing rugby. However, Sei claims that he only picked up the sport because of Natsusa and Ibuki. His tone remains calm and collected, but Ibuki knows that playing a sport for someone else's sake isn't the mindset that will help Sei win. The following morning, Ibuki and Yasunari shared their disappointing reports with each other, and after spending time with both Natsusa and Sei, Ibuki decides they need to come up with a new plan. He brings a rented car to the hotel and drives everyone to their high school rugby club. The boys are amazed to see how the grounds have improved after they graduated. Unbeknownst to Sei and Natsusa, the boys leave them stranded at the school and drive away. Once Natsusa realizes what the boys did, he spam calls Yu's phone until the FBI notices it. Naturally, Ibuki tells the boys to decline the call. However, soon, the boys from the team start calling one by one. Ibuki thinks that Natsusa asked them to do this. So, he snatches the phone to teach Taylor a lesson on God's behalf. Unexpectedly, he reveals that the boys overheard his trip plans and decided to join him. The worst part is that they brought Ikuto and Gakuto, ensuring that Ibuki doesn't get a chance to escape from the spot. Back at the hospital, Taisei remains by Takumi's side for multiple days. Eventually, Takumi tells him to get up and practice for the upcoming match. He reminds him that everyone except him has accepted the harsh truth of the game. They can try to work hard, but they can't beat talents like Ibuki and Sei. Besides, Taisei's ignorance regarding this matter is only hurting his team. His words strike deep, allowing Taisei to accept the truth and move on. Back on the trip, Natsusa finally admits that Sei's is in the right. He promises to stay away from the match if it means that they can win. At that moment, Sei remembers that he used to follow Natsusa everywhere. He was also the one who got him into rugby. Yet, after the accident, Sei proposed that he will also quit the team since there isn't any meaning to play the game without him and Ibuki. That's when Natsusa said that he was a special player. Not only that, he claimed that Sei's penalty kicks make his heart race even if they are bound to score. This was the first time that Sei saw Natsusa smile after the accident. He made a promise to himself to make Natsusa smile with his goals. However, the thought created unnecessary pressure, which eventually made him lose his touch. Back in the present, Sei asks Natsusa if he still still loves his kick despite not scoring. Without any hesitation, Natsusa says that he loves to watch him kick the ball. This tells Sei that he can keep Natsusa smiling by just taking penalties. He places the ball on the ground and kicks to score an amazing goal. Natsusa tells him to score again just to be sure that things are working. However, Sei refuses to do so, claiming he has found his reason to play rugby once again. Soon, the boys return to the high school and discover that Natsusa and Sei have made up. They want to celebrate the occasion. Yet, Natsusa reminds them that they won't be forgiven that easily. At that moment, Ibuki and the others beg for their manager's forgiveness. They assume that his wrath will fall on everyone, but Natsusa spares Yu, knowing the others forced him to cooperate with them. With that made clear, Natsusa turns his attention to Gakuto and Ikuto, who are dressed to be side characters in a romance anime. Suddenly, Ibuki approaches Natsusa from behind and pats his head, although Natsusa gives him the devilish look, saying he isn't off the hook yet. During this time, the boys suggest they should visit the hot springs together to ease off before their upcoming game. This also allows Ibuki, Yasunari, and Yu off the hook, which is something they prayed for in the spring. Later in the evening, the boys gather around the carbonated hot springs with low temperatures. Yu expected it to be super hot, but Ibuki claims that he will find something strange once he gets in. The two of them watch the boys chit-chat with Natsusa about his scary neck. They fear it is too red for normal. However, Natsusa says that it happens whenever he takes a hot bath. Ibuki and Yu quietly watch from the side and realize that Natsusa is happy without playing the game. This entices Yu to lean forward, offering to provide more assistance to Natsusa. Although his intentions are in the right place, Ibuki warns him that Natsusa gets pissed when someone tries to help him. He reveals that one time, Natsusa couldn't reach a toy, and so Sei and him helped grab it. However, afterwards, Natsusa spends hours trying to prove that he could have gotten the toy on his own. As their conversation ends, Yasunari comments on Yu's physique being too lean for rugby. This hurts his feelings, leading him to cry. Luckily, the boys soon come to his rescue with tickle games. After a few minutes, Ibuki walks over to Sei and asks if he's feeling okay. While replying to him, Sei mentioned that there is a moss behind him. It is something that freaks Ibuki's soul out of his body. Yasunari then jumps in and calls in a false alarm. Turns out, it was only a dead leaf from a nearby tree. At that moment, Natsusa laughs the hardest, but Ibuki claims he is the one who dropped a moss in his boxers when they were young. In the meantime, Ikuto joins Gakuto in the steam bath. The two of them wait for the crowd to get tired and leave the hot springs. During this time, Gakuto mentions that Ikuto is a good enough player in the professional league, yet he doesn't think that it can be possible, and there are two reasons for them. Ikuto claims that Gakuto is the first reason he can't bring himself to play pro rugby. He spoiled him rotten under his leadership, and now there isn't any way he could play under another leader. Aside from that, he has always been keen on sizing his opponents, which tells him that his skills are far from what's needed for the pro league, though he believes that Gakuto has the physique and skill set to become a top player in the future. He also believes that they will hold the national cup under his leadership without fail. Later the same night, Ibuki drives Natsusa back to his mother's place. While they talk about the team, Ibuki receives a message from his psycho-narcissistic mother, telling to visit home before going back. They can't believe that his mother somehow found out about them returning to their hometown. Natsusa claims this is the reason he doesn't like to live in a small town. In the end, he is forced to leave early, but things don't turn out as planned because the others forget to book themselves a room. They decide to divide themselves in groups and live with the boys who are natives of the town. In the end, Sei is forced to take in Ibuki for the rest of the third year. The blondie feels ashamed that he put all of it on his shoulders just because he doesn't speak to his mother. However, Sei reminds us that friends help each other out in moments like these. As their conversation continues, Ibuki asks Sei about the root cause of his nervousness. Unexpectedly, he claims that the certificate hanging on the wall was his reason for losing himself to nervousness. That was the first time he was happily praised by Natsusa because his own father was never around to show his support. From that day onward, Sei promised to keep Natsusa smiling, but then Natsusa went down the rabbit hole until he revealed that Sei's penalty kicks made him smile. It put more pressure, making him think what would happen if he missed. Despite trying not to fall in despair, Sei couldn't help but get that thought out of his head. In the end, obsession was the one thing that led him to his downfall. On the other hand, Yasunari takes Yu to his house only for his parents to mistake him for a girl. They get overly excited that their shy son brought a girlfriend home for the first time. Even his dad can't hold his horses, thinking that his generation is saved. Yasunari's family forces him to run to the store and bring some snacks. That's when he lashes out and reveals the truth about Yu's gender. The following morning, Ibuki's mother runs into him while he waits for Natsusa and Sei to arrive. She advises him to quit rugby and focus on academics. In her mind, he needs to study hard and join the family business. However, Ibuki makes it clear that he doesn't want to join his loser brother's company. Their conversation turns into an argument as his mother reminds him that she can only rely on him to take care of her. Suddenly, Natsusa shows up between them to force them apart. He grabs Ibuki by the hand and starts to walk away. At that moment, his mother falls to the ground, blaming Ibuki for her shortcomings. Upon hearing this, Natsusa turns around in anger and starts insulting her in public. He claims that she has been holding him back whenever Ibuki tried something new with his life. She then plays the victim card to blame everything on him as well. In the end, Ibuki asks Sei to take Natsusa away before something bad happens on the street. He then confronts his mother about needing space from his family business. Not only that, he tells her to live life without any regrets. He reminds her that failing and not giving up are the most beautiful things in life. After speaking with her, Ibuki returns to Natsusa, telling him that he finally found closure with his mother. From now on, he won't feel scared to act on his wishes. Yet, Natsusa doesn't buy into his promises and asks Ibuki to prove his resolve with actions instead of words. Soon, the boys aboard the train return to their school. That's when Natsusa runs into the gods of back and forward, Kazutaka and Madoka. On the other hand, back at the university, Kotori practices diligently for the upcoming match against his former team. Yayoi tells him to relax, but he doesn't want to embarrass himself in front of his former classmates for chaining schools. Meanwhile, instead of practicing for the match, the remaining third years and Fuga come back from a long shopping spree. They brag to each other about buying anime figurines and wasting their parents' money. Yet, it is all thanks to Fuga that they were able to find the items at hidden places. Suddenly, Ren notices that Fuga isn't in the same mood he was earlier. Upon asking, Fuga reveals that he messed up during their last match. If it wasn't for him, the team wouldn't have given away multiple penalties to the opposite side. He claims that the team lost that game because of him. However, Ren and the others disagree with him because rugby is a team sport. Aside from that, Ren thinks that this is the perfect opportunity for their team to create history. He believes their team will lift the national cup, which will in turn help the players to turn pro after graduations. His lively spirit is enough to get the team's morale back on track, even if they hate his face to death. Meanwhile, back in the train, the Hangu brothers are left speechless to see more than half the gang on board the train. Naturally, Kazutaka doesn't waste this chance to pick a fight with Ibuki and Taylor. At that moment, Ibuki willingly restrains Taylor to avoid causing a scene on the train. In the meantime, Madoka has his fun time with Natsusa's cheeks. Eventually, Sei feels irritated by his behavior, so he stands and tells him to scream. Eventually, the elder brother Madoka tells Kazutaka to calm down and sit with him for a conversation with the captain and vice captain. As they exchange pleasantries, Madoka reveals that he won't be turning pro after university, which comes as a surprise to both Ikuto and Gakuto. They know that every major team in the country is desperately trying to recruit the two brothers. But Madoka wants to explore the world and apply the principles he learned from rugby to his business. Ikuto tries to make Madoka think over his decision, but Kazutaka claims that his brother has gone strong. While they are being honest, Ikuto also reveals that he won't be going pro as well. He feels like his skills have hit a wall, especially with players like Ibuki and Sei on the team. Although, just like Madoka, he can apply the teachings of the sport to jumpstart his career in the corporate world. A few hours later, the boys board the train and say goodbye to each other until their big match. However, Ibuki decides that he will patch things up with Kazutaka once and for all. He apologizes for not joining up the same team, explaining that his family has always been messing up his plans. Yet, Kazutaka doesn't sympathize with him. He thinks that Ibuki has fallen into a habit of being the victim. His statement makes Ibuki realize that he has been acting like his mother all along. And so, he doesn't ask for forgiveness, but instead bets on the upcoming game. He says that Kazutaka will buy him the most expensive steak in the city once his team loses. If not, then he will bow down his head in the stadium and acknowledge him as the better player. After Kazutaka leaves, Madoka asks Ibuki to leave him out of their feud. However, the blondie knows that even he wants to patch things up with Natsusa and C. Unfortunately, the two of them can't find ways to express their true feelings earnestly. The boys then head out to the field, only to find Kotori practicing himself to death. That's when Natsusa turns on his overly simplified beast mode, claiming that Kotori can't tackle or score goals. His job is to pass the ball around the field, because none of them are stupid enough to let a new player take on the front lines. The truth hurts badly, which entices Kotori to throw a few punches at Natsusa. But luckily, Fuga intervenes in the situation to force him into the dressing room. There, he explains that Natsusa is their manager with a knack for theoretical and tactical players. Yet, Kotori refuses to believe that whatever Natsusa holds a candle. Suddenly, Yasunari shows up as well, making everyone think that the situation will get worse. But unexpectedly, he understands that Natsusa pissed off Kotori with the truth. He reveals that Natsusa did the same thing with him, and it hurt like hell. Despite that, everything he said turned out to be true. With that, Yasunari asks Kotori if his case was similar as well. Much to their surprise, Kotori doesn't throw a tantrum for everyone using his name. He admits that Natsusa's analysis was accurate. Still, he wants to play on the frog lines and make everyone acknowledge him. Meanwhile, all of the fourth years gather together to plan their trip to Thailand. They want to enjoy each other's company before everyone gets a job. However, Ren argues that they will get off from professional practice games and come visit them. The conversation continues, and the fourth years realize that various things have changed in their life. For starters, every last one of them was a brute who knocked others out for little offense. But then, the game of rugby taught them professionalism. They needed to live a disciplined life. Suddenly, Gakudo stands up to ask everyone's permission to read a letter. He wrote this letter to confess that he isn't the best captain of their club, as Ikuto said. In fact, in his mind, he is the worst of them all. Still, they can't afford to lose the upcoming match. That's when Ren and the others speak up, reminding him that they choose Gakudo to be their leader. They promise to follow him regardless of victory or defeat. At the same time, the first years enjoy Natsusa's special homemade fried tempura. But Sei sneakily tries to eat everything, while Yasunari and Natsusa talk about Kazutaka. Truth be told, Ibuki feels bad for not being able to enroll at his university, because his brothers and mother intervened in his admission. Otherwise, they would have been playing together, creating the best team possible. Yet, despite whatever happened in the past, Ibuki claims that he will do his best to patch things up. With that out of the way, Natsusa figures that Kotori is avoiding him intentionally. Still, he can't help but pack food for him and the rest of the boys. He wants them to stay strong before the upcoming match. Half an hour before the big match, Natsusa catches Yasunari staring at the field with great expectations. He calls him over to draw a good luck charm that Natsusa always used before the match. For a moment, Yasunari thinks that there is a catch to his kindness. However, this time around, Natsusa claims that he isn't joking. He used to draw this charm before every game to remind himself to be sly and agile during the game. Back in those days, Natsusa considered Yasunari to be his greatest rival. He thought that he would be the one to steal his positions. Still, things in the past don't matter to him anymore. The only thing that is of importance is to win the match without fail. These words of kindness from his idol not only boosts his morale, but gives him the self-confidence that Yasunari always lacked. Over at the other side, Madoka finds the perfect opportunity to catch Sei off guard in the men's room. He tries to throw him off his game, claiming that Natsusa is the only one that is keeping their relationship alive. He attempts to strike low, but Ibuki shows up at the scene before that happens. He reveals that Natsusa and Sei don't need to talk, because they are already very close. His intervention in the conversation ruins Madoka's plans of reconciling with C. In the end, Madoka decides that he will take that anger on Ibuki during the match. Right before the match, Gakudo gathers the team in the dressing room for one last huddle. He reminds them that they have been here before, and winning this lineup is not difficult. As the three rising stars step on the field, Natsusa tells them that they are his heroes. He wants them to devour the field and bring home the victory. Soon, the match starts with Madoka's kick, but it doesn't give them any major chance to score or add pressure. This is due to the fact that Madoka stops all of Yasunari's major attacks. Not only that, Kazutaka covers the other side of the field to hold off Ibuki's attack. He spears him in the stomach and then pushes his fist inward to hurt him even more. Taylor notices the situation and comes to rescue, but Ibuki asks him to stand down. After that encounter, Madoka and Kazutaka picked up momentum, taking a strong lead of 14 points. Despite every effort the boys make, Madoka's intuition tends to find a player on the front lines. And this time, he uses the first-year player Toma, who slips past Yasunari with brute strength. Much to everyone's surprise, Yu reveals that Toma was a former basketball player back in high school. Yet, Natsusa knows that this is exactly what Madoka is good at. He can train almost anyone with a hint of talent for the spot. In fact, he was the one who trained him and Sei back during their high school days. Yasunari even took lessons from him whenever Madoka visited his hometown. The sheer gap in their score makes Kotori think that everything is his fault. He starts to assure that Natsusa was right about playing to his strengths. Yet, his ego won't let him accept the harsh reality of being small. Then comes another scrum, and due to being engrossed in negative thoughts, Kotori drops the ball like it's nothing. Still, Gakuto doesn't hold him responsible. He advises him to wash away the thoughts before the game resumes. This time around, Ibuki tells Kotori that he will bait Kazutaka to the other side, creating a chance for him to score. The glare he gives Natsusa after that goal makes Takumi wonder what happened between the two of them. However, Natsusa reveals that he only did what Takumi told him to. A few days before the match, he visited the hospital to ask Takumi for his help regarding Kotori. Yet he claimed that there is no changing him once he's in that groove. And so, Takumi hoped that he would explode during the match. But for that to happen, he asked Natsusa to rile him up. After a few rounds, Sei finally gets a chance to shine with his penalty kick. While preparing for the shot, he recalls Natsusa telling him to prepare a pre-kick ritual to help him focus on the goal. This is something that Madoka and pro players always do. Yet, instead of coming up with some spiritual bullshit, he asks Natsusa to smile from the sidelines. Even his weird smile helps him score an outstanding goal in the heart of the goalpost. Once the match resumes, Toma performs an illegal high tackle that earns them a free kick. Madoka immediately arrives on the scene and yells at Toma to apologize to Ikuto. The two of them then bow in front of the referee, which lets them off with a warning. Unexpectedly, Sei requests Gakuto to choose a central kick, shocking everyone on and off the field. However, Sei calmly takes the kick most pro players never dream of, and scores like it's a piece of cake. This helps build momentum on their side, allowing them to score a few pints before the referee ends the first half. Back in the dressing room, Toma apologizes to Madoka for making that illegal tackle. However, he tells him to continue playing the same way, but just keep his tackles a little lower. On the other side, Taylor picks a fight with Kazutaka for deliberately targeting Ibuki on the field. Yet, he ignores his word, claiming he's an NPC. Once the match resumes, Kazutaka returns to his sinister plays, but unfortunately this time around, Ibuki gets seriously injured. With that, Ibuki has no choice but to exit the match for 10 minutes. Natsusa and the others quickly take him into the dressing room, only to discover that he wasn't injured badly. Yet, the sight of blood reminds Natsusa of his own injury. His body starts to tremble, due to which the jar of antibiotic cream falls from his hands. While stitching Ibuki's head, the boys try to calm him down. Ibuki assures him that he isn't hurt that bad, but Takumi reveals that Natsusa always turns pale when someone is injured. He did the same thing when his muscles got torn. Naturally, Natsusa tried to defend himself, but the boat had left the dock at that point. Meanwhile, Gakuto asks Makoto to take up his position once again. After weeks of not playing the match, he starts to feel anxious about his performance. Aside from that, Kazutaka returns to his favorite position, which tells him that they want to end the match quickly. Although soon, Makoto realizes that the other team was only composed of Ibuki. This allows him to forget about the pressure of the game. After the scrum begins, the team gets the ball to Makoto for the attack. He slips past multiple opponents until Kazutaka comes his way. That's when he passes the ball to Ikuto. Unfortunately, the opposing team senses this development and surrounds him. As things start to seem dire, Ren, the bull of the team, dashes towards the finish line, ready to help out Ikuto. Despite being tackled by Madoka, Ren continues to run towards the goal. It takes a few members to stop the walking disaster from scoring, but that's when Makoto comes into the ferry to steal the spotlight. In order to celebrate the goal, Ikuto runs towards Gakuto, only to find out that he's injured his finger. Yet, his calm demeanor reminds of the past, when everyone expected him to be the leader. Ever since Ikuto was little, he was a beacon for others to follow. This made him think that he's superior to the rest of the pack. However, Gakuto changed his mindset, claiming that someone who calls himself better than his team isn't fit to be a leader. That was the day he decided to follow Gakuto to the end. With that, the 10 minutes resting period for Ibuki comes to an end. While stepping off the field, Makoto leaves the match and Taisei in his hands. Meanwhile, on the pitch, Yasunari realizes that defeating Madoka is their way to victory. A few days earlier, he visited Yu's place to watch his previous game. Unexpectedly, Yasunari finds spreadsheets with everyone's performance data described with numbers. However, Yu's analysis of his skills makes him feel like a fish swimming in a horde of whales. Still, Yu tries to cheer him up that his skills are unique to him. Once he stops pouting, Yasunari asks Yu to display his analysis on Madoka. He claimed that he would be the key player to defeat. Upon seeing multiple footages, Yu explains that Madoka's strategies are always unpredictable. He also sometimes copies his opponent's moves to confuse them. Back in the present, Yasunari uses this information against Madoka. He shits his passing hand and goes down the left instead of slipping past the right to score a clean goal. Afterwards, Madoka compliments Yasunari's playstyle, thinking he will act cocky. Yet the opposite happens, as the star rookie replacement gives all of the credit to his team. On the sidelines, Natsusa mentions that they would have won the match if they had used the Yu method before, but from now on, he promises to work him to death before each match. For the first time in the match, Natsusa's team takes the lead by 3 points. He yells at the players to keep possession and wait for the clock to run out. However, Taylor loses focus in mid-game, recalling his fight with Kazutaka in the dressing room, which lets the opposing side gain momentum once again. After they score, Ibuki slaps Taylor, telling him to get his head back in the game. Yet, the other second and third year players oppose his action. They think that he's been holding back his plays ever since the match started. To prove them wrong, Ibuki dashes towards the goal with his teammates. He internally confesses that he wanted unconditional love from someone all his life. Moreover, the only two people who gave him that were Natsusa and Sei. The opposing team put all of their might into stopping Ibuki from scoring. Still, Taisei shows up at the right moment to push him beyond the scoring line. With that jaw-dropping victory, Natsusa becomes the official manager and trainer of the team. He prepares everyone for the upcoming Nationals Cup, knowing their team can win. That's it for today, my fellow sports anime fans. Make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more.